Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of book-loving nerds looking back and rereading the entire Brandon Sanderson series involving the Cosmere. My name is Reader, and I am joined by Swiggity Swoo,
Hey, what's going on?
DragonKieran,
Me?
I'm Just One,
Hey everyone.
John,
Hello.
and Kay.
Hey, hey!
And we are here to give you the final chapters of Mistborn, The Final Empire, Part 2, chapters 12 through 15. Before we get into it, would anybody like to make any comments about these chapters?
We finally get to meet our last character.
There's so much condensed in like so few chapters. I'm excited about this one.
A lot happens in these.
Yeah, this was super fun. This was a great.
It's great to see the character development and get to start seeing people
Yep.
not be just like be themselves and not be what they've had to put on a mask for. So which obviously we'll get into.
So, with nothing else to comment, let's get on. Chapter 12.
Okay, so I had chapter 12 this time, so I'm super excited about this. So this is Vin's first ball that she's getting to go to. She's super nervous about it at first. She's so worried that she's gonna stick out like a sore thumb and that everyone's gonna know that she's an imposter and she's gonna get thrown out and she's gonna ruin the whole plan. She's so nervous. She's got so much anxiety about this ball. And she walks in and at first like she's very nervous, and then she like looks around and she notices that people aren't really seeing her. They're just seeing the fancy clothes, the way her hair is dressed up, her jewelry, her makeup, but they're not seeing her. So she realizes that she can hide just by hiding in plain sight, which is something that she never had really thought about before. So, um, so she kind of calms down and she has a good time for the most part at the beginning. She goes, she eats her food, and then says it is like, "Oh, by the way, people are gonna ask you to dance. Just like casually turn them down." And she's like, "What?" Um,
Wait, what?
she's like, "Wait, what? You never taught me how to dance."
But I know how to turn men down.
Yeah. So, she did so she finished eating her food and she had her first guy come up to her and be like, "Would you like to dance?" And she politely turns him down nicely, and so says it is like, "You got this. I gotta go to the servants' dinner to go overhear some gossip about what's going on and to hear some secrets. So you can handle it. You'll be fine by yourself for a little bit." She's a little worried because Sazed is leaving her alone. But a couple more guys come up to her and she turns the ball down, and then she gets bored because she's just sitting there and she has no idea what's going on. And she is just kind of hanging out and she's observing everything that's going on. She's looking at all of the artwork that's in the keep. This is also our first look at nobleman's keep, like a real like high nobleman's keep and their ballroom. So all of the windows have these stained glass scenes of that are depicting religious events. So um a lot of it is the Lord Ruler like vanquishing the deepness and things like that. So we see that that's on the the
Windows.
the windows, the stained
Mosaic.
glass. There we go. My brain just like blanked on that. So and she's getting bored, so she is looking around and she sees the obligators like walking around, and she's like, "What are they doing? They keep going up to groups and then disappearing, going up to groups and disappearing." So she uses tin to try to figure it out, and
After using copper.
after using copper, she does remember to use copper first. She's a smart girl. So
But it's funny too, because the way you explained it just there is pretty much how it happened in the book. She's like, "Oh wait, no, copper."
Yeah.
Which I think is still stupid of her. I think she shouldn't have done it, because if you're just watching this random girl and she suddenly like reacts to light, you're like, huh, maybe she's burning tin. I can't hear anything. She's a Mistborn. And that kind of ruins the whole thing.
But so she listens to the table next to her to try to figure out what was going on with the obligators, and she finds out that the obligators do transaction deals with the noblemen. So like any sort of deal that the noblemen have, they have to have an obligator to hear it,
To notarize it.
to
pretty much.
notarize it in a way before it can be official. So, which is an interesting way about the world, how the world works, and how the Lord Ruler's system of government is set up. She makes a comment that the garrison watches the ska, and apparently the obligators perform a similar function for the nobility.
I like that line.
So, yeah. So she is getting really bored, so she decides to go wander. She sees these balconies up high, so she decides to go wander up to the balconies, and she gets up there, and because she wants to get a better view of the ballroom as a whole, and of the stained glass windows. So she goes up to the balconies, and she gets there. She's standing there looking out over, and then a guy comes up to her and is like, "Well,
Not just any guy.
not just any guy, but she
character.
doesn't." Okay, listen, I love him too, but a guy comes up to her and is like, "What are you like? This is what happens, I guess, when you wander away to go get a drink. A pretty girl is now standing in your spot, in your reading spot." And so, he's like, "I guess there's enough room. Like, you don't have to leave. There's enough room for both of us to stand here." So he stands next to her and he pulls out his book and starts reading. And she gets annoyed at him because she's like, "You're standing next to me, but you're not talking to me." And she's been bored because she hasn't had anyone to talk to. So she keeps instigating him and getting him to talk to her. And she finds out that his name is Elend, Lord Elend. She doesn't get his family name. She doesn't know who he is at this point in time. And she makes a comment about how she doesn't know how to dance very well, and then he asks her to dance, and she says no. He asks her in like a joking way, and she says no.
I love how she's
and then
like,
she,
"Oh, he's incredibly awkward or incredibly smooth. I can't tell."
yeah, can't tell which.
Yes, he's that.
So, but he points out that Sazed is down by her table looking for her. So she quickly exits and goes down, and Sazed is like, "Who are you talking to up there?" And she's like, "This guy named Elend." And he's like, "Elend Venture? As in the heir to House Venture? Elend? That Elend?" She's like, "Yeah, I guess. So
Maybe.
maybe." He's like, "Oh God, what have you done?" So she inadvertently started talking to one of the most powerful, eligible men in the Final Empire. So unknowingly, and he asked her to dance. So Sazed is very upset about this
He
and is like,
visibly pales.
yeah, he's really worried about it. Then they head out and they head back to the mansion to go tell to go relay to Kelsier about what happened that night.
Good words.
All right.
So yeah, who has comments about this chapter besides
I would
me?
like to add that she did see her father as well.
Oh yes, she did.
Yes.
Okay, I was about to bring that up.
Yeah. I had forgotten that. I remembered it when I was talking about the obligators, but then proceeded to forget to mention it. So
We don't know much about him besides she almost thinks that it's problem layered, but then realizes that it's not, which gives us a hint at he likely is also have a high status because of they're gonna have similar markings and a similar look. So
yeah, she sees him and she recognizes him, and at first she's confused about why she recognizes him, and then realizes that it's her father. And she tells Sazed that her father was there as well.
And then she tries to describe him bald, tattoo eyes.
Well, he
like
asked
every
her,
other
he asked
one.
her what he looked like. Sazed asks her what her father looked like, and she goes, bald, tattoos around the eyes. Like, what do you want from me?
What's
He's an
your old
obligator.
man?
He's an obligator. They all look the same.
Listen, I had the Ellen Ventura call me cute. I don't need to listen to none of you.
Well, you think they make them look all the same to take away their individuality, kind of like they do in like prison and I guess the military.
Probably.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to the cult, man.
I think it would be more like a military thing.
Yeah.
And like the things around the eyes, like they get more intricate the higher status you have.
It's kind of like the stars on your chest and
the V's on the shoulder pad.
Yeah, you would know, not me.
I would.
Was that scary for her, do you think, to see her dad?
I think she was a little bit worried, but she realized he doesn't even know she exists. As well as she also has that newfound like sense of nobody knows that I'm Vin the Ska Girl. I am Vinette. Valette. Oh, they're not, which she kind of got over that.
right.
Yeah, so I think that I don't think she's really that scared, because like she knows what he looks like, but again, like Reader said, he doesn't know who she is. He has no idea. Like, even if he had an inkling that her mom had her, he wouldn't know what she looked like now. Like, he would have no idea how to even like pick her out of a crowd.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. The floor is yours, one.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up sorry, I have blacked out for a sec. I wanted to bring up that it's the first like kind of peek into the Lord Ruler's religion, like the whole mythology of him, that we get to see with those what is it, murals? No, glass windows, right? Yeah. And you see kind of in like wondering about all that stuff, but in a really like she asks herself, what was it, the deepness? Why depicted so formlessly? And she kind of like thinks about it, and then it's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, yeah, not my
Well, I think
not my
that
problem.
I think that has to do with the sort of aspect that is Mistborn, how it's the tale of the hero going evil, sort of, in which you've got the hero who went on a journey to stop an unspeakable evil, but in this, he became evil afterwards. He didn't sacrifice himself or, save the world. He took it, in which the deepness has that greater evil threat, and for it to be this ambiguous thing kind of allows for all of that cliche to fit inside of it. It's literally a deep plot hole.
I like that she
Yeah,
kind of
that's
thinks
true.
he made it up at first, too. She's like, it's probably just something he invented to get people on his side.
It could be.
Which, at this
Been-
point, we honestly don't know.
Been 1,000 years. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like the first time that I was reading through this book, I definitely thought that it was just something that that's definitely what I'm thinking, is that it was just something that the Lord Ruler made up.
And the rest is gonna be for the spoiler section, I guess.
Is that it for chapter 12?
You don't want to bring up anything about Eland? I'm surprised.
Other
I have
than
to
that,
say.
he's the best.
The conflict over who was going to review this chapter was intense. It was a battle to the death, almost.
Oh,
Listen, yeah, I definitely have had that, like, in a couple of the it's not in this book, but in some of the books I have had it marked where Ellen shows up exactly because I get so excited about it.
Readers, in case you do not know, I pride myself looking like Ellen, and I would give anything to play him in the movie. If it meant killing you all to play him in the movie,
Wow.
I'd be happy to do so.
It's starting
There
to
you
sound
have
more
it,
like
Remind me
Kelsier.
not to go where you live.
Like, you wouldn't do the same.
Only if I got to be human.
Oh,
No, I still probably wouldn't do it then.
All right, can we do this? Can we go around and just say who we would want to be? Because I would
Okay.
want to be Kaladin, straight up.
Should we save this for the spoiler section?
Yeah, especially if we're going
Yeah.
outside of this series.
Well, if
Yeah,
we're keeping it
especially
in the
outside of
series,
the
I'd
people
wanna
that
be
we've met
Kelsier.
so far by chapter 12.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's
Out
save
of the
this for the
character-
spoiler
Yeah,
section.
let's save it for...
All
Like,
right,
he
that's a
already
good
brought
plug.
up human.
Good plug for the spoiler section.
Yes, I did.
All right.
I'll make a comment that we're gonna start off with a thing. Just cut all this part out. And anything else we would like to bring up about chapter 12?
Was there anything in the epigraph? I didn't read it.
Oh.
I think there was a comment about the people,
Uh,
or that it was a difficult trek.
Yeah, we have. So, do we have his name yet? I don't remember.
So it hasn't mentioned
Yeah.
the person's name yet, but he talks about, you know,
Just that the
he
government
or
had
she is
united.
like, what would it be like if every nation basically was united in one? Which is of course what we see in the Final Empire. So whoever this person is obviously fantasizing
Mhm.
about something, right?
But they're
Yeah, that hasn't
fantasizing about what
happened
it
yet.
would have.
So
They're fantasizing what it would have been like if they all united, but also probably not under, worldwide threat of whatever the deepness is.
Mm.
right.
Yeah. The last thing that I wanted to point out is that Ellen clearly does not like House Venture.
No, he does not.
Because she asks him, like, he asks her, what do you think of your first experience at court? And she's like, it's very overwhelming. He says, say what you will about House Venture, they know how to throw a party. She's like, you don't like House Venture then? He's like, not particularly, no. They're an ostentatious lot, even for high nobility. They can't just have a party, they have to throw the best party. Never mind that they run their servants ragged setting it up, then beat the poor things in retribution when the hall isn't perfectly clean the next morning. So it kind of shows that he is not of the same mind as the rest of his family.
Mm-mm.
Which is a bit of a cliche to have, the prince hate the royal family. But I like that it isn't this gigantic reveal in like the final 100 pages or something. Like, this was a little build up, direct thing in which we see in the next couple chapters there is a causation to it.
Right.
But one thing I always applaud Brandon Sanderson with is his avoidance of cliches.
Yep. And there's a lot to talk about in this section of the book, so we should continue on to chapter 13.
Yeah, let's go. I can get right into it. So, in the epigraph, we hear that the terrorist people originally came up with the prophecies that say that whoever's writing this epigraph is going to be, the person of legend. But there's one of them, Rashik, who is doubting, is jealous, is kind of, hating on whoever's
Glaring
writing
daggers.
this.
into
A
the back
jerk
of his head.
bag.
Yeah, he's being a regular jerk bag, as they say, a bag of jerks. But again, we barely have any context for that. So moving forward into the meat of the chapter, it kind of immediately follows after that ball that Vin attended, and we get Sazed and Kelsier and Renew talking about how Ellen Venture is probably just nothing but bad news, and Vin should stay far, far away from him.
Don't go talking to that boy, you hear?
Which I immediately thought probably made Vin want to talk to him even more. Like, what else would that do, right?
She is a teenager.
Yeah. So
And more than a little stubborn.
Kelsier
More so.
says he's gonna head out, and Vin's like, well, normally he says where he's going, so she's wicked curious about it, and she says, yeah, I think I'm gonna head off to bed. Sazed kind of shoots her a knowing glance, like, really? But he doesn't interfere, and she sneaks out. She's following.
How does Kelsier not notice this? Like, honestly, with him being super aware of her faking being asleep previously, how does he not think,
True.
yeah, maybe I should make sure that the girl who, tries to listen in on my every word does not try to follow me to my secret plan.
I think she waited until he left.
Well, yeah. She moseyed on up. He was gone, and by the time she slipped out, he's already jumping away. And he also knows that Stathan's there to watch after her. So
Plus, Vin is a pro at this.
Yes,
I think
having
that-
done it all of once before,
He has a lot on his mind too.
he really does.
Apparently, what he plans to do next, I think he just
Oh yeah, that's a good point. And also, I think maybe he thought he could just outrun her, because we find out
Yeah.
that there's this thing Vin finds while she's tracking down Kelsier. He speeds off, and she finds some spikes in the ground, and she
Thunder
roughly,
ingots.
well, right, they're not really spikes. They're like
Sorry.
bronze ingots. But I don't know if I can say this, but later they call it the spike way, don't they? Yeah.
I'll check that.
So
as
that's
we
what I
talk.
was thinking of. But it's
kind of
basically
describes it almost kind of like a metal type of crowbar type of thing. It's just this L shape.
It's a freaking
of
Mistborn
bronze.
ray gun, is what it is.
Ray.
yeah, it's a rail gun.
It's a Mistborn rail gun.
You stand and you push, and it makes you go fast, and you can get from the city to the country. And she,
It is
That's
called the
nice.
Spikeway. I don't think that's too big of a spoiler.
yeah, good name for it. So she figures out how to use it and catches up to. Well, she thinks she catches up to Kelsier, but really she just ends up in Luthadel, and he's nowhere to be found. And following some vague sense of, well, she can't really place why, but she ends up at Keep Venture again.
Oh,
Which I can imagine why.
Yeah.
I mean, she's still a teenage girl, so
Yep.
It's literally been an hour. She's clean.
Overly attached girlfriend.
But
you
this
would
is
be too, though. Sorry.
This is the first person she's been able to connect with, though. She even talks about it in the beginning of this chapter, how she feels like she could just be herself. She's not Vin, she's not Valette, she's just herself, So I can see, it's the first time she's had that connection.
That we're just meant to be, I guess. Yeah.
So she actually sees Kelsier, though, and she's worried for a brief moment that he's maybe going to assassinate Ellen, which is really dark. But
totally not out of his
yeah.
repertoire.
And she even says, oh, that would be kind of smart, too, because that would really cause some trouble. And that's what he's trying to do. So, Kelsier actually gets the jump on her, using her old trick of shooting her coin pouch away to make it look like she sped off, which I thought was a cool detail. He learned from her a little bit. And at first he's mad, but they get to talking, and Vin figures out that he's going to Critic Shah, which is where the Lord Ruler's palace is, if you don't remember. And yeah. And she convinces him to let her come along because, hey, 2 Mistborn are better than 1, right? Which, reserve your thoughts for whether or not that's a good idea till the next chapter. But
Yeah.
but he
All
says,
in due time.
if you're going to tag along with me, you're going to need all the tricks, right? So he pulls out a vial, and I was really excited about this part, of atium. And he says, I'm going to teach you how to use atium. And we get to see what it does, which is really cool. It's basically like showing you a few moments into the future of what someone's going to do. You can imagine like a shadow of what they're about to do right before they do it. And it also shows what happens when 2 people are burning atium at the same time, where you see a ton of shadows. You're like reacting to each other's futures, which is just an awesome power that I don't know how Brandon comes up with these things.
Precognition is ridiculous. And I like that he not only makes it super powerful and this super rare metal and creates a reason why it's so rare, but also like limits it so it burns really quickly. You can't have it just sitting in your stomach for a while. It only shows you a few seconds into the future, and if somebody else is burning it, it also messes with yours.
Yeah. It's also just a cool way of visualizing what precognition might actually look like or feel like to use. I'm pretty
Which
sure
it doesn't just
like that's the end of the chapter.
it doesn't
though, right?
just show her pretty much.
Yeah.
It doesn't just show her the future, it also like makes her mind more aware of
It
allows her to
expands
get
her ability to comprehend all the new information as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you can imagine if 2 people are burning it, their minds are just working overtime against each other, imagining all these different realities.
It's freaking caffeine is what it is.
But that I think we'll have a lot to say about it in this world section, but it's definitely one of the stuff that I'm still very eager to see in a movie, or like to have a visual of that,
Mhm.
because it would be so freaking cool.
Oh, absolutely. Or in a video game. That would be so cool.
That might
I've been waiting for one for like so long.
We were this close at one point. There was a website and everything.
There's a
Alas.
guy working on a Mistborn game right now.
I dream of this like every single day at this point. A Mistborn game.
Yeah. But we learn about atium, which is the one metal we really have not heard anything about. And we're still missing the one,
The 11th.
which my
Yep.
screen is now frozen.
I believe you mentioned 10, and so now we technically know 9, but
Yeah.
that's not talked about here. But just to keep
We-
count for our listeners, which ones have been
We
revealed.
don't know what the last one is, besides
Correct.
the 11th metal.
Correct.
There should be like a song where we just list off the metals. Keep track.
It's like something out of Animaniacs.
Yeah, exactly.
Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium.
I wanted to. Yeah, sorry.
No,
Or
go.
are you done?
I'm done.
I wanted to bring up this small part where so she's basically trying to convince him to let her stay with him, and she kind of like rants a bit, and he's like, "Wait, at first I couldn't like get a word out of you, and now you just like," and
You're scolding me?
I know, right? Which sounds so much like her, but it just proves how much she's grown and how much she has evolved and how much confidence she has now. I mean, she still she still lacks a lot of it, but how much she's gained by just being with the whole crew for a few months now, and I found that really cute.
Look what happens when she isn't being abused and told to be quiet.
Amazing, I know, right?
I do want to say probably my favorite scene from this is when Kelsier's like, well, maybe she can just like glare at him and that'll solve it. And then she glares at Kelsier. He's like, yeah, like that.
I loved that. So
Yeah.
I love their relationship. Like,
Yeah. Brandon does good on banter.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Makes
there
it
anything-
really lively, very very real feeling.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people in a lot of relationships that just like exist around this constant, ribbing and banter and stuff like that. So it's very enjoyable.
Anything else we would like to add for chapter 13?
I think we. Oh, sorry.
I was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, this was like the first time it's been raining in these books, and I kind of forgot whether or not it actually does rain in this world. So it's kind of
Yeah,
cool
right.
to see that.
I'm honestly kind of confused on how it rains.
Yeah,
That doesn't
I
make
mean,
sense to me.
there are oceans.
Did it
Yeah, but
start?
it always-
Did it start
it's
raining in 13? I
boiling.
thought it started raining in 14, but
she thinks she feels a couple drops.
okay. I know.
If it rains, I doubt it's gonna lightning though. I don't think we're getting lightning and thunder.
I don't ever recall them talking about that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know. Vin commented about snow at one point, and that ticked me off.
Really?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
Yeah,
They
she
get
makes-
precipitation. They get snow. They get rain.
And at this point, in our knowledge of the books, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Ash is raining down from the sky. We know that there's the boiling sea.
Once you have ash falling from the
When
sky,
did they
planet
talk about
seems-
the boiling sea in chapters 1 through 13?
The planet seems too hot for
The
Right,
planet seems
yeah.
very
other
different,
things
Bo.
besides ash falling from the sky.
right? I
Maybe.
think the point is you just don't know. Either
True.
way.
Right. We just have to take at face value how the planet runs by what's
Yeah.
mentioned so far. And so she's talking about snow, right? We're getting into some rain and just a heck of a lot of ash.
It's rain and a bad scene. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, but rainy Luthadel and a misty night, very cool concept to picture. I had an
Yeah.
easy time picturing a lot of these.
Remember, you
chapters.
gotta remember the rule of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let that slide. Okay. Who's chapter 14?
Chapter 14 is me. So, real quick, we get the epigraph, which is a little heavy on the foreshadowing, but otherwise not too terribly impressive. Sometimes I wonder if I'm going mad. They wonder if it's because of the pressure they're under, or maybe it's the death that he's seen, the friends that he's lost, the friends he's had to kill, which is kind of creepy, and I don't know,
The path of a hero is bathed in blood.
littered with corpses of every stripe. Okay. And then it talks about how he's starting to see shadows, dark creatures that he doesn't understand, doesn't want anything to do with them, and he thinks they may be some kind of figment of his imagination. So there's that little bit of what the heck is going on here. The rest of chapter 14 is basically a really in-depth action scene. There's a little bit in the beginning that's a little pertinent. So the Vin and Kelsier are hanging out, talking about what he's doing there and why. We find out that he's basically trying to do an unscripted version of what he did back in the day when he broke into Creedic Shaw with Mare. They touch on how that was the day when he was captured, and dance around the supposed betrayal that Kelsier just doesn't really fully believe actually happened.
That he was betrayed.
Yeah. He talks about this little room that they're trying to get into. Lord Ruler goes there every 3 days for 3 hours, and that this is not one of those days. Nobody knows what he's doing in there, but it's got to be important, and there must be something of value in that room. So that's what they're going to do. They go fetch his coin pouch. I believe he gives her another bit of atium. Not sure if that was at the beginning of 14 or end of 13. And off they go. There's a mad dash. They knock out the door guards. Kill them, I don't remember. They execute a whole slew of guards breaking their way in. They finally find their way to the room where they're going, only to be met by Legasp Steel Inquisitors. Not just one, not just two, but 3 whole Inquisitors. Everything kind of goes nutso here. Oh, one little detail I kind of skipped over. Vin makes her first kill in this little skirmish.
First 4.
True, 4 kills. And while I was reading this earlier, kind of like prepping my notes, it kind of was like, this is like the dungeon crawl part of your like really elaborate D&D game where like you go in there and you take out the guards, and then the guards from the other room hear the fighting and come and they fight, and you fight more guards, you know. And that's kind of the vibe that I got reading this, which is fun for me because I love D&D.
Well, and then you have the really big room. It's like the same in like all Legend of Zelda games, D&D, big room with a thingy inside of the middle, and you're like, hey, this is great. Nothing's wrong here. Let's walk across this entire room where no one attacks us. And then you open the door and boom, out pops the bosses.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Which, of course, means that whatever is in that room, they still don't know. Because they are just like, book it, get out of here. Yeah, they talk about it being like a little house built inside the palace. But Kelsier, like, immediately is on top of this. He's like, Ben, run, go, get out, flee!
On top of it?
Well,
I wouldn't say
like,
that.
he actually has the wherewithal to react, whereas Vin's just like, oh crap. And then
Yeah, she just freezes.
she totally
Yeah, I mean,
does.
Mist
I would
races
given-
the
definitely be on
lights.
Vin's team. Yeah.
Given that she's dealing with her first time killing a person, like, I could see how a person would already be on the brink of, like, mental breakdown.
Not in a good headspace at all.
No. And finally, Kelsier pushes her with it, like, shoots his coin pouch at her, and then pushes her out of the room with it to try and, like, snap her into it and get her going, which finally works. And she starts to flee. And in the process, she takes a really nasty wound to her lower side. And the only thing keeping her going by the time she actually does break out is her pewter. And then she spends a little time Spider-Manning from tower to tower and spire to spire, trying to get away from the Inquisitors that are chasing her.
She picked up a book.
She did. She picked up a book, used it to deflect some... They call them tiny daggers. In my mind, I always picture shuriken, like 5-pointed or 3-pointed ninja stars.
They're 3. They're just triangles, really, is how they describe them. They're pointy triangles.
Oh,
Yeah,
she
I picture
burns-
them like caltrops or something.
she burns
but anyway,
atium too.
she burns the adium, uses it to kind of knock all of the little tiny daggers out of the air.
No, it lands inside the book. The book. Of
Yeah, so he fires them, she swings and catches them all in the book.
Right.
And then
I
you get a
imagine, like-
glimpse at what it looks like to fight normal people with it, as she basically dodges through like a dozen or 2 dozen guards, and she's like, "Hey, no one hit me. I'm invincible."
And then the Steel Inquisitor is like, "Oh, I can do this too."
And then
I
she
love that
really
line.
poops her pants. So she finally makes it out, does her little Spider-Man routine between the towers to try and lose them. Takes a cue from the earlier sparring that she did with Kelsier and uses the book with the little daggers in it to kind of mislead the Inquisitors and send them on a wild goose chase, which works for a second or two, but then they figure it out, and right before she passes out, she hears a loud crunching noise and sees a warm, friendly face, and then she blacks out, and that's the end of the chapter.
I would like to point out that when she sends the book away, she's hiding on a spire, and she has her copper on. She's dead silent. She quietly landed on the spire, and she's like, "There's no way that they should be able to hear me or see me because it's pouring down rain at this point. It's pitch black. You can't see anything. You can barely see like 2 inches in front of your face." So she's like, "There's no way that they could find me." And then
She does the same trick that Kelsier uses, that they use on each other, and it works. The point is, it's been proven to work.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's
But
been
continue.
then
proven to work that this is a trick that works because she's used it on Kelsier and Kelsier has used it on her. But then the Inquisitor lands on the spike that she's on, the spire that she's on, and she's like, "There's no way that he should have been able to find me. He couldn't hear me, see me, like sense me. There's no way that he should have been able to find me."
Mhm.
I mean, the dude's got spikes in his eyes.
Who knows what he can do?
I mean,
Which
that's
adds to the mystery and power that is the Steel Inquisitors.
right, because they shouldn't be able to see it all, and yet they clearly do.
And Kelsier literally stabs one in the neck as he's being choked and held up, but the guy's like, okay, and
Yeah, he
Yeah.
picks up the little throwing star things with his bare hands, and it talks about how he's like bleeding down his arm, and he just
Not even
Inquisitor don't give a.
I wanted to point out that when the Inquisitor first comes out of the room, he looks at Vin and goes, "You,
I was
Yeah.
gonna say this too.
who is your father?"
Who's
I
your
have
daddy?
this-
Oh wait.
I have this note as well.
Who was your daddy and what does he
And
do?
it's specifically like, "I have been trying to find you.
Mm.
Who is
This
your
has
father?"
been the same Inquisitor who's been trying to hunt her down for the last 16 years. That meme with the guy with the board with the yarn, that's him hunting down Vin.
So this
He was
Inquisitor
here.
has to be played by Liam Neeson.
Trust me, this is the same Inquisitor who spent his entire life being ostracized by the other ones,
Yeah.
being laughed at. She doesn't even exist. She does exist.
Oh, spoiler section.
Yeah.
That's
How's that
hard.
spoiler?
Mm.
Yeah.
How's that spoiler? Like, we know that they've been hunted, right?
Yeah,
But
we
not
do
that.
know that.
Yeah,
We don't know the details around it.
We
but
don't
do
know
that
any
she
of the
has been-
details, and we can't go into details
Yeah,
about
I'm not
it.
going
but
into details, but we know that she's been hunted, and that some Inquisitor has been doing it, and that this has got to be the Inquisitor that picked up her scent as she was returning to camp. And he's like, "No way,
Yeah.
my first real lead."
I found it. He says the Inquisitor specifically says, "And you, I've been looking for you. I'll let this one die quickly if you'll tell me which nobleman spawned you, half breed."
You're so evil.
They are.
My other comment about this was, why do they always assume it's the father? Like, couldn't the noble have been a mother?
No,
And couldn't the father have been?
because if the mother had been the noble, then the family would have found out that she was
With
unfaithful or whatever. They
child? Oh, yeah.
because the father would presumably know that he didn't spawn a child, and or at least it's much more likely that they would be found out.
Also, it's
And-
probably much more visible.
Yeah.
Right.
We also know that the noblemen do go to and sleep with ska women on a regular basis. So it is assumed that it is going to be the father as opposed to her mother.
But no noble women are like seeking pleasure with people that aren't their husbands.
I
Well,
don't.
and even if they were,
I yearn
And-
for true gender equality.
it's. But I mean, if all of a sudden the lady of the house, whatever, shows up pregnant, everyone would just assume that either it was the Lord's child,
Mhm.
or they would know she did something untoward and with the baby.
Yeah. And the child wouldn't be like brought up outside of the family, I think, if it was the woman. So, yeah. I also wanted to point out, which I just lost. Oh yeah, just this small part. Right when they enter, like right after they killed the first guards, Vince is saying she feels like she felt wrong because she could feel the Lord's ruler power pushing on her emotion, which isn't mentioned before, is it? No, not yet. Yeah, okay.
Briefly, when they are first making their approach, they talk about how Vin feels
In which
that,
yeah.
that
he
wrongness.
tells her to burn copper, and she does.
Right.
But I thought
Because
that
the
comment
And then-
was like she felt like it was still entrenching, that it was more so the dread of her.
Yeah, that's
killing
it.
somebody.
Yeah, that's a little bit later on. It comes back up where she feels like she can still feel it despite the copper, and they do mention that. And I think it is right after she does that.
Yeah.
And then I did have one line that I highlighted out of here because it's very important to Kelsier's kind of character, where you first kind of, or maybe not first kind of, but where you get another look into exactly how bent he really is. He goes, "These were evil men, Vin. Every Ska knows in his heart that it's the greatest of crimes to take up arms in defense of the final empire. Nobody thinks like that, unless you are absolutely shattered upstairs. Like, you've got to be, like, pretty sick to think that if you do something like this, you're
My
just..."
boy.
We know Kelsier.
Swiggity, you have something for broken boys, I swear.
Yeah, well, you know, takes one to know one, I guess.
No.
Somebody check his closet.
It's right there. It's just filled with
I
books.
want to make sure there are no bodies.
Well, that makes
piled up
sense.
in there.
Just a basket of bones.
Books of broken boys.
Yeah, my friends. Yeah.
Kelsier's signature move, I feel like, is landing on you with his 2 feet, like pressed into your chest, and then like slicing your throat. He does that so much.
He does it like twice or 3 times in this very chapter.
Yeah.
I think Brandon really likes that move because he uses it in some of his other books too.
Yeah, even
I'm like,
Paladin.
yep.
So, yep.
Yeah.
Spoiler, sorry.
Yeah.
And they're gonna put it in the
Yes.
Mistborn game. Like you're gonna be able to do that.
Right? That's gonna be your like your heavy jump attack.
Yeah, your pounce attack.
If we ever get a game.
That's your
When
lunge.
we'll get a game.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, when.
Yeah. It's
No
kind of
ifs.
it's kind of like Spider-Man though. Like you said Spider-Man a couple times before, and I was thinking about it. Like burning ATM is a lot like having spider sense. And
Right? And then steel pulling up through the spires, or iron
Yeah.
pulling. Like that's it's very Spider-Man-y. That's always
I've
the picture
always-
that I get.
But I've always envisioned Vin more as a Batman. The darkness, the mist, the literally hanging with the cloak on in the darkness and like trying to remain quiet.
That's true, and with the little grappling gun thing, Batman does a lot of the
Mhm.
swooping as well. So, yeah, that's fair. I'll agree.
see, I always thought more of wax for. Well, we can't get into that. We can't get into that.
Ep, 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 ep,
Yeah.
ep, ep,
We
ep.
can't get into that. Bad swinging.
Can
You cut
we
yourself out.
No.
We move on.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say last chapter, right?
Yep.
Can we find out who that who this warm embrace is from?
Yep.
So chapter 15 picks off a little bit right after. But first we got that epigraph in which we learn about a man named Kawan who betrayed him. That he was originally the terrorist philosopher who called him the hero of ages, but is now saying that he is not. But when we get back to the main storyline, we basically have Kelsier back at Club's workshop, and Doxson is crazy upset, asking how he left Vin behind. Kelsier is basically like, hey, there were 3 Inquisitors. I told her to run. What else was I supposed to do? In which they also comment, we learned nothing from this. We still don't know what's in that room. It was an utter failure. In which, would you like to make a comment?
Also, I would like to say that I would like to point out the fact that Kelsier is not really all that injured.
He's being bandaged, I believe.
He's being
but-
bandaged a little bit, but all in all, he's in fairly good shape for having
Mhm.
fought 2 Inquisitors.
Well,
is
he only
either-
fought one for the majority of it because the other 2 were out hunting down Vin.
Which either means
Yes.
that he is a lot more skilled than Vin is, or that he pretty much just ran.
He's
the
probably using ATM
Inquisitors,
too.
or that the Inquisitors weren't really trying all that much. as much to fight him as they were to try to get Finn.
True. Lestibornes storms down the stairs and basically says, "Someone is coming. It's a big man in a robe." And pretty much everybody springs into action. Ham picks up a stave. Doxson pulls out daggers, which is just weird to envision for me. And then Sazed enters. He's the warm face that helped out Finn. He's got her in her arms. And he also has the book that she used. He quickly asks for Ham to give her some pewter, which he, being a thug, does. A little bit of color returns, and then Sazed does some quick surgery, but it's still unknown if she'll live long enough to actually recover. But the pewter is helping.
There's
he
that
basically
line at the end where Dox is like, "Was it worth it, Kel?" And
I
he's-
haven't gotten there yet.
Oh,
Shush.
yeah? All right.
Back in your hole. Back in your hole. They comment about the book and how it's written in Kaleni, and that Sazed will try to translate it later, but he cannot at the moment. He is tired and exhausted, physically, mentally, and possibly even magically. Kelsier worries if the plan to kill the Lord Ruler will actually work, and which is kind of the first time we see him kind of questioning that smile he always wears. It's like the 11th metal is the only thing I've found close to coming up with a legend that hints at his weakness. Doxson scolds him and asks, "What was it? Was it worth it?" And all he says is, "Ask me when we know whether or not I will live." A very dark ending to this section.
I like that.
I'm just
line,
going to throw out
obviously.
the name of the language for people that may be listening to this that are audio listeners. The way Michael Kramer pronounces it is Hleni. So,
Klenium.
Yep.
And those symbols were on the door of that building inside the big room too, right?
I don't remember.
They
if
talk
there were
about there
those
being
symbols
flowing symbols on that building.
on that door,
but
but I don't know if there were any in the book.
I don't think they mentioned any correlation between them.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look.
Oh,
Yeah,
I thought it
I don't-
called it out specifically.
But honestly, there's not much to talk about in this chapter. They got
there is something very important to talk about in this chapter, is that we hear a little bit more about Sazed's powers.
Oh yeah.
It mentions that where Kelsier is asking him about Vin, and is like, I don't know if like she's gonna make it or not. Like, many men have died from smaller wounds, and he's like, I arrived too late, I think. When I found her gone from Renu's mansion, I came to Lucidel as quickly as I could. I used up an entire Metalmind to make the trip with haste.
Yes,
that's
good
the
catch.
first one.
I was still too late. And then later on, he says, that like right now I need to rest. So it's just kind of a little bit of a hint. This is the first time that he's mentioned Metalminds, and
And somehow they help him get to move in haste.
Somehow they
Yep.
help him move in haste, and yeah. So, which is very, and earlier in this chapter also it says, in addition, Sazed was no ordinary healer. Religious rites were not the only thing that keepers stored in their uncanny memories. Their metal minds contained vast wealth of information on culture, philosophy, and science.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Apparently
I
didn't
remember
pay
that.
much attention.
So it's also mentioning that
Oh, yeah.
the keepers have really uncanny memories, and that they store things in metal mines. We
Yep.
don't really know what metal mines are at this point in time.
But it's got a really cool name.
Yeah, it's got a cool name, and Sazed can use them somehow. And this kind of implies that he can store maybe memory,
Stuff.
store information in it, as well as he can use
Information
it
and use them to
to move
to
really, yeah,
move
and
away with
use them Yeah, and use them to move really quickly between places. So
Yep.
I also wanted,
Sorry.
yeah, also wanted to say, I think we get a real like, we get to see a little bit more of Cal and Daxton's relationship, because up to here it really has been like, of course, like Kelsier is like this obnoxious character that we all love, obviously, but but still, yeah. Daxton, and there we really have like Daxton kind of balancing him out. We kind of see like this balance of like Kelsier doing like crazy, stupid, dangerous stuff, and Daxton kind of like uh damage controlling stuff all the time behind him, and kind of like being there to, yeah, just bring him back to earth. Oh, just casual, I guess. And to be like, like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially with Vin here. So
yeah,
I'm really cool to see that.
Dachshund is kind of like the voice of reason for Kelsier.
Definitely.
There's a little spot in this chapter, it's right at the beginning, where Dachshund's like, "Are you bloody insane?" And I just picture Kelsier momentarily transmogrifying into Hades from the Hercules movie. Yes, I get it. I know. I'm insane. Got it. You know, just
Have
turning
we not
blue and
established
flame.
this?
Right.
But even like Doxa makes like Lord Ruler, and Kelsier realizes like, how can we fight this? Even my best friend swears by his name.
That's the most oppressive thing I can imagine. Is if you're trying to take someone down, and everyone literally refers to them as God constantly. Not with thoughtlessly, you know. It comes
It
out.
really establishes that name that seems very comedic, but it's Lord Ruler. He rules all.
Yeah.
He rules your prayers. He rules your emotions, your lives, your very sense of self.
Yeah,
Yeah,
taking
and
him down
Kelsier
would be
just intends
insane.
to. Yeah, Kelsier just intends to like deal with him in a way
I'm
somehow,
just
I
gonna
guess.
walk up and punch him in the face.
Yeah.
That should do it.
Feels like the plan. Like,
I haven't been
okay,
able to
alright.
make the 11th metal work yet, but
It's almost kind of like how Joker or Carnage are the only way to react to this world of order is to break the system.
Well,
that's
should
essentially what they're
we?
doing, right? They're challenging the world order. I mean, that's all anyone who's lived in Luthadel or the outskirts knows, right? For the last
Yeah,
1,000 years.
Yeah.
but nobody's been insane. Nobody's
Well,
insane enough to kill the Lord Ruler. Nobody's insane enough to pull off a heist of all the 18, to set all the houses against each other, to create, basically reinvent the ska revolutionaries. Nobody can be that crazy.
no one is cool like that, except for him, I guess. Should we move on to the spoiler section? If no one, or
I
should we
think
maybe
so.
sum up?
Any
I've been
final
in
thoughts on
spoiler section this whole time.
Does that mean your brain is like spoiled?
It's
Get
been
back
a
in your
long
hole
week.
until we get there. Any final
Swiggity is
thoughts
allowed
about
to
this?
speak again in the spoiler section.
We'll just cut everything. Swiggity will cut everything Swiggity said and just
I'll
put it
just
on the
server
spoiler
mute him.
section.
Yeah, watch. When this episode comes out, it's just gonna be me.
I'll just mute him until.
This is Swiggity's revenge against us.
Be
Just cuts
3
us all
minutes
out.
long.
It was.
Alright.
So, is there? Would we like to say any final closing comments about this? This is the final chapter section.
Oh,
of part 2.
one thing that did pop up that was interesting that I'd like to mention that's not spoilery. It says, I was worried that she wouldn't know how to use computer unconsciously / subconsciously.
Instinctively is the word.
Instinctively, thank you. Instinctively, because she's so new to her powers. So again, it's just kind of like she's been using this, and she knows she's been able to use this since she was at least 10 cognitively. She knew that other people didn't have the luck that she had, and we also have already talked about how she's used pewter in the past in small amounts. So obviously, this is just kind of like another hint of like the depth of the stuff that she's been using. That this is really already ingrained in her to a point where this is like he's surprised, he's shocked. That, he is right. We talk about all this knowledge and all these things, and he is like, and he associates with mistings, and so he should know the level of capabilities.
Yeah.
And so he's like, like she's burning pewter. So
She's a special girl.
She is. Also, I didn't like say that earlier, but the way she just like learns so quickly to use the spikes or the sights or the spike way.
Yeah.
She just like picks it up and she's like, "Okay, I got this. Let's go." Sure, Vin. Why not?
Yeah, Allomancy for her is very instinctual, and she doesn't really have to think a whole lot about what she's doing. She just kind of does. And it works.
Spoiler time.
Spoiler time. I would like to thank all of our dear listeners who have been listening so far. We're going to head over to the spoiler section. If you have not read the Mistborn series, either this book, the series, the entirety of the Cosmere, I do not recommend you stick around because we will talk about everything pretty much all the time. We hope you've had a great read through. We're very happy to have you here, and we hope to see you next week. Bye bye.
Help!
Ciao.
Okay, first of all, like we have to mention like which character we think
Yeah.
we.
Let's do that.
Oh, glad
Ellen.
you brought that up.
we
Are
think
we
we would
doing
be, or that
Mistborn?
we just want to be.
Want to be.
Definitely want to be.
Yeah.
Like who we want to be, like in the movie,
If
or
Brandon were to allow you to play any character in any of the Mistborn, Cosmere, Stormlight Archive,
Cosmere, okay.
Warbreaker,
Oh, are we
New
going to do a
Oh,
whole
oh,
Cosmere,
no,
or do we want to
no.
do just Arrow 1 first and then expand it? Like, hey,
Let's
if we're just
let's do Arrow 1 and then we'll do the entire Cosmere.
and then we can do anything.
Okay.
So just for Arrow 1, just to keep it focused, as this is currently still focused around Mistborn. We don't need Reader to say anything.
We already know who he wants to be.
I'm
Unless
gonna
he
be
really
Ellen,
wants to say, and we're
and I
back.
will
But,
sell my soul.
I'm right there with you.
if you see a line of murderers leading up to a tryout, once it's announced
I'll know
what
who
platform.
snitched. I know it's one of you 5.
What about you,
Everyone that
Dragon?
listens to the podcast will know who's the culprit anyway.
Yeah.
What about you,
Uh,
Dragon?
Yeah.
Who would you be?
I really like Ham, but Ham is likely going to be recast as female. So I don't
Don't
think
let that
I'll be
stop
able
you.
to be Ham. I mean, it would kind of mitigate the benefit of trying to make Ham female if you then cast Ham as a male, trying to pretend to be a female on screen, if that's not naturally what I would tend towards.
You can
That's
be his
not-
wife / husband. That'll show up at the end of book 3.
Oh, that would make everybody happy.
But
Like, it's a
I just
female,
like
let's play
his
by
I just
man.
like his wit, his sharp mind, the way he just talks and like jokes with people. I think that's just very entertaining to me. I guess someone else that I think would be fun, and they know you could do the makeup for this. I think would be I wouldn't say no to being the Lord Ruler.
Ooh,
I've
Someone's
done-
got a little
guy.
power trippy.
let's just go from one side of the spectrum to the other, you know. Go from Ham, but I've done not like any official acting, but I've played around, and let's just say people that know me know that I can play a good villain. So
Okay. And he is a good villain, so
he is
works.
a great villain. I just that'd be great. Don't have his physique, but hey.
All right, Kay, what about you?
I would probably. I forgot that I was just thinking of characters that are actually like female in the books, and not characters that might have their genders changed in the movies. So thinking about that, I like Dachshund a lot. And I think I would like to play Dachshund. Being very organized and just like just exhausted by Kelsier's shenanigans. Um, but other than that, I also really like Alrian's character in book 2.
I was gonna say,
She's so fun.
Yeah, 2
she's
and 3.
Like she's so fun, and she's so manipulative, and she just
Adorable.
knows she knows everything
She's
and
perfect for
knows
Breeze.
exactly how to persuade people to get them to do what she wants, and how to like use the fact that they think that she's like an innocent like girl to like get them to like protect her, or like do like get her to like them to like carry her things. So I
That's a
just
good
like
pick.
her a lot. So those are
I
the two.
can't wait to get to her part because like she's so great. She's a
She-
great female character. Really love her.
Mhm.
Is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What about you, John?
Well, if I was going to be a villain, I would be human. I think the Colossus are the most interesting
He's
bad
not a
guys
villain.
in most of the Cosmere. I would totally be human. If I was going to be a good guy,
You could just be a character. You don't have to
Well-
be good or evil.
well, human's not
bad.
necessarily evil. He's just
He's neither
Human.
good nor evil. He's just human.
yeah.
I am human.
But if I was going to be a more prominent character, I would probably go with Breeze. He is sarcastic, witty. Like he is this book's wit
yeah.
in a lot of ways.
I mean, you could technically just be Hoyd.
I could, but
No, we're just
that
following
implies an
Hoyd.
entire acting career, and I don't know if I'm ready to commit to that.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
We're just
I mean,
following
technically, he
Hoyd.
looks different in H1, so technically, you could potentially, when
Get
he's
away
just
with it.
literally making like random appearances as a beggar, you could just, you can do little. They could probably pull one-offs because in some books he's old and short and crippled, and
That's true.
other
But
books.
if I
We're
was
just
gonna-
following Hoyd.
tall and wickedly handsome, so
If I was gonna be Hoyd from any like series, though, I would totally be like wit Hoyd. Just for the same reasons that I would want to be Breeze. Like he's this witty, sarcastic, snarky. He's not a real combat guy. Like, I mean, I would basically be a bullet
Certainly
sponge
has
in a combat. So
certainly has his wits about him.
hell.
But,
What
So,
about you?
yeah,
Juan?
those are my favorites. My personal preference.
Alright.
Juan, what about you?
I was stalling, guys. I don't know.
That's
I
why
go
you've been
for-
asking everybody. Stalling. for time.
yeah, but Ken's around.
No, I think I definitely be Vin. I was obsessed with her when I was younger. I mean, still am, but now I don't. Now I'm more of a like in the last books Vin. I guess. I hope. But the like trauma child was like I was like okay, I can do that. I know she's white, but like never mind. I don't. Yeah, I'm here.
That doesn't mean anything.
Say that doesn't matter on Amazon Prime Video or
True,
Netflix.
What is it? Annabeth and the Percy Jackson shows being black.
Yeah, true.
Mhm.
But yeah, definitely Vin, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Alright, Swiggity.
Swiggity.
Well, does anybody want to take a guess?
Breeze.
No, he wants to be Kelsier.
Yeah, I want to
Must
be
be Kelsier.
Yeah,
Kelsier.
Yeah.
Kelsier.
Obviously, I want to be
He
Kelsier.
already
I
said
know.
that he likes the broken boys.
Yeah. I want to be that sarcastic, smiling, badass guy. I just want to be that guy.
Sociopath.
Yeah. I mean, he would be so fun to play. And, I also want to murder the Lord Ruler.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
so
But-
serious?
But he doesn't get to murder the Lord Ruler.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, not by a
Yeah.
long shot.
But the Lord Ruler doesn't get to murder him either.
No, but you know what?
He
Kelsier
tries.
does. He does get to supplant the Lord Ruler after he's dead.
Yeah.
Okay,
True,
let's
true, true.
try to quickly do who would be Greater Cosmere.
No, boy. Can we do one per book? Because I swear, for the life of me, I can't.
No,
I can't.
we've
I
got.
Let's think about this, and maybe we'll talk
We'll
about
save
this
that for
another-
next time.
Save that for
Yeah.
next time.
If
So
we've
that we
got-
can talk more about actual spoiler things from
Mhm.
this part
gotta
that
go
we
that
just
long.
read.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
'Cause we're a little bit over an hour now.
Yeah.
boy.
Well, that'll trim down with the editing.
So
Yeah,
I put these in the podcast notes. Chapter 12, they actually reference the Southern Islands in the epilogue. Not the epilogue, the
Epigraph.
Oh, wow,
Like,
really?
come on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Comments
that's cool.
that if only the main continent and the Southern Islands would work together. World building that honestly nobody else would think about except for Brandon when he wants to make a comment in 6 books.
6 books later, I was just going to say.
Yeah, Brandon and Tolkien, right?
Well, I mean, he didn't originally plan for the Era 2 Mistborn books, so
100% he was just rereading Mistborn Era 1 and was like, ha! Nobody's questioned that.
let's bring that in. Let's
He was like reading it,
elaborate.
and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is playing on in the background on the TV, and he hears.
Definitely what happens. Definitely what happens.
So the the big foreshadow in chapter 14's epigraph, the mist creatures, the dark creatures that he doesn't understand nor wish to understand, we'll definitely be seeing those again soon through
Those
a
are
more
nice.
modern perspective.
Soon being a book later.
Yeah.
Soon.
10 soon.
Stupid.
Stupid.
Oh, the
I want to
funny one.
say that in that chapter, with chapter 14, the comment about the Lord Ruler every 3 days for 3 hours
Yeah.
goes into the room. He's compounding atium with his Metalminds to reverse his healing.
Aging.
AJ,
Yeah,
yeah.
I said
but
healing.
yeah.
He's reversing his aging. But I've got to wonder, like, that's a we can actually mathematically deduce like his age based upon the fact 3 hours every 3 days. and he's
Well,
reverting
except for
how many hundreds of years?
but the problem, but here's the problem: is you don't know exactly how much age is stored in each piece of ATM,
Yeah.
and it's also
Um,
based on how good are they and how good was he technically before and after he touched the sliver of infinity,
Mm-mm.
right? And so it's like, how good is he actually? Because remember, some people can squeeze more out of each piece of metal, and some as far as Mistborn go, and then also depending on the level of the keeper / the level of the Feruchemist is how much can they actually store in a piece of metal. So it gets a little dicey as far
thought-
as
Feruchemy was pretty much you can store whatever you want. I don't think there's a
you can store, but it's really based around the purity of the metal, the size of the metal, and then it's also how strong are you. And you have to look at Thazid, like the level of strength of a Feruchemist is also how well they can store, how quickly they can store,
Right.
and
That's
how
the
much
thing.
can So
I-
and the kind of the conjecture would be how much can one store is going to be based on like the size of the metal, but also there's always slight variances based on the innate investiture inside of each individual and how closely they're tied to that, and that
Even
plays
for
a part
even
across
for
his entire cosmos.
ferrochemy,
Hmm?
because what I understood about ferrochemy, I don't know how you say it.
Ferochemy is how I read it.
Ferochemy, thank you. Is that you can like put in just as much as you can pull out. Like
You
there's
can
no
put
like
in, but the rate
Right.
at which you put it in, so because you can, if you actually
the
look at
rate.
how the characters across Era 1 and Era 2, how they're like wax versus phased on how they store their weight. It's the
Yeah.
rate at which they store is also affected by the power and the strength.
And
I'll have
there is some, with weight at least, they do. He does talk about some variation. Like you can reduce your weight by X amount, but maybe not
but
all of that
that's-
reduction gets stored or whatever. There's a
Right?
little
You can't
wiggle room
you
in
can't
there.
restore it completely to 0, but you can store it enough to drift around, whereas wax never
Mhm.
really talks or gets to a point where he's able to store his weight that he can jump off of buildings and just use his clothes to slow him down. He has to still use coins to stop himself when he's landing.
Right.
Okay.
So these are
But-
things that you have to watch for.
I feel like we can kind of assume the Lord Ruler is like a best case scenario because one, he's
Right.
been doing the compounding for at least 1,000 years, and being the original Mistborn, he is closest to the original. Well, he's actually a shard or a splinter. I mean, so
Capital
he's
S.
touched the power. So he should be among the strongest of Allomancers as well. So I feel like we can consider him to be a best case scenario.
He is a sliver, not
Yeah,
a
sliver.
splinter.
Oh,
Yeah, that one. There's too many
Yeah.
S's. I'm sorry.
I know, you're good. I just wanted to make sure that we had the right
The right. Yeah,
term.
I
As a
appreciate that.
Yeah, because a splinter is something different. So
Right.
There's a splinter,
is.
there's a sliver, there's a shard, there's
yeah.
too many
it's-
S's. You're right.
Either
John.
way, I don't want it stuck
Yeah.
under my toenail.
But ATM's got to be like super powerful if you're an ATM ferochemist. Because from
ATM
how
is super OP.
yeah, but like especially for a ferochemist, because you can literally just regress, store your age into it, and become young permanently.
And you though?
Well, I don't know.
Well,
Maybe
because
there
while
is a
you're
reason.
storing your age, you get old. And then when you're
Yeah.
withdrawing your age, I believe that's how that one works. It's kind
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you store
backwards-ish.
your age, you get older, and then when you tap it, you get younger.
Oh,
So I suppose you're
okay.
technically storing youth, not so much age.
Wasn't
Yeah.
he using Allomancy
So that's why-
too?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's compounding. That's how
Yeah.
he's getting double the investiture from it.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why when he's in the room, he's really old because he's storing the age in his metal mind, and then when he's out and about, like actually like seeing the people, he's young because he's tapping that metal mind. He's compounding.
Okay. I was reading it backwards then.
It's a little weird. It is.
It's confusing.
To say the least.
Well, that was all
Um,
the spoiler notes that I had.
Well,
Anybody
I
else?
had one that I wanted to mention in chapter 12 when we were looking at the when Vin is looking at the
The stained glass mural.
stained glass, and then
deepness.
she also when she's up above and she looks at the ground, she's like, I think she makes a comment about how it looks similar to like, am I too far? Hold up, I gotta try to find this. That I thought that she made a comment that it looked similar to but she like the like mist, but she like ignored it.
I don't remember that.
I mean, I'm trying to remember. I
thought that
might be
was-
completely wrong.
I thought that was one of the swirling patterns in the stained glass.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I'd have to read it.
Although now that you mention it,
Right.
there was a fun bit where they're like walking up, and she's like, "How do those lights work?" And says it's kind of like,
I don't know. I think later
Yeah.
they say they're limelight, which is
It's
I don't know
lime.
if that's-
It's a type of limestone that they burn that burns super bright and super hot.
Yeah, I don't know if that's an actual thing, but it's at least a nice little reference to the Reckoner series.
Really?
I think
Well,
that's on purpose, but
Yeah, because to be in the limelight is an actual like real world.
True.
It's late, and I
Thingy.
can't remember the word.
Idiom.
Thank you.
Well-
It is an actual thing.
My
Yeah.
brain.
oh wait, so I found what I was looking for. That the stone tiles on the floor
Yeah, is mist.
formed a pattern she hadn't noticed before that was mist. That's what I was thinking of. That's what I was thinking of.
Gotcha. Which I think is super cool. I mean, who wouldn't love to like? Let me go stroll along my balcony and stare at this like awesome kind of like misty swirling pattern below you. Like seriously.
You know,
Yeah.
now that you're talking about that, that kind of is a little bit allegorical of the way nobility kind of disregards the mist and in order to try and like make themselves look all like, oh, I'm not even worried about this thing that all of you little ska people are so terrified of. Like, this isn't even a thing. Why should I be bothered? I'm noble. I'm safe. La 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 la. You
But
know,
they
Same with how they
still
wear
like
metal,
try to
too.
avoid it.
yeah, deep down inside, they're still like, I don't want to go outside in the dark.
The Vashta Narada. Nobody's gonna get that reference.
No, I was just gonna ask. I'm like, what?
It's a Doctor Who reference. There.
Oh,
Yeah. I was like, it sounded familiar to me, but I couldn't remember where it was from.
I had a really small thing I wanted to point out was I really liked how they referred to the Inquisitor as Death briefly in that chapter when it's talking about, but she wasn't in the arms of death, because later when Marsh becomes an Inquisitor and stays an Inquisitor for a long time, they always call him Death. That's a really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
that in the lore for Mistborn era 2, he is Death.
He's the Grim.
Yeah,
He's the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
yeah. Is it the
So cool.
Pathists or is it the other ones that
Maybe.
consider him death?
I think it's pretty
Uh,
much everybody considers
everyone.
him death,
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
but it's
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's in the lore is that he's considered at least he's he's considered Death. That if you see him then you're meeting Death.
Oh, baby, by the way, like, what? Like,
I know.
immortality is a curse.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he never got to be with the woman he loved, Mare. She's had a hard life.
He has.
I really hope we get to see him either in the next book or, gosh, can you imagine if he's still around in like Era 4 space age?
Cyberpunk Mistborn.
I mean, somebody's got to stop Thydakar.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and who better to stop him than his own brother?
Right?
Yeah,
Gosh, that'd be awesome.
I would love
Oh
it.
my
man, can you
God.
imagine
Oh
the
my
battle
God.
between Thydakar and Old Iron Eyes with like their space age lightsabers? They just like both leap out of their starfighters and clash mid deep space and duel it out, man. That'd be
Does
so
Thydakar even like have his
I mean,
Mistborn
think
powers
about-
anymore?
He's just 2 Sions in a trench coat.
That's all the lightsabers are. It's just a really
Oh
long
man,
CI.
that's great.
I didn't come up with that after that. I've heard that elsewhere, but it fits.
See the credit.
That's good. But
Oh,
now
man.
think about I mean having Mistborn powers and doing like duels and something like the Death Star or stuff like that, everything is metal, everywhere.
Oh,
Basically,
God.
kind of like how Zane is completely overpowered in the end of book 2, how he's literally like hovering and moving across the ground as he's pushing and pulling on like all the metal around him.
Yeah.
Right? But it's just like everything is metal, and they could just get moving so stinking fast. I know.
Imagine
It'd just be
full-
really fun.
The one thing I'm going to be upset by is we're not going to see what a full Mistborn is really capable of.
Unless
What do you
Well-
say that?
Icar has all of his powers.
Well,
I
we see
mean-
it
I
in
mean,
the Lord Ruler. We see it in the Lord Ruler, but the Lord Ruler's such a strange character that it's not really there. But if like we get to see like one of those beads of Lorasium, like granted Hoyd has it, and we're gonna probably see him have Mistborn powers, but even that's
So-
gonna be
right.
Oh,
Well, and then
talking
we
about
also talk
Also-
about end of Era 2. Well, book 3 of Era 2. People have access to all 16 powers, Ferrokami and Allomancy.
Yeah, you have
Bands
that
of
with
Mourning,
the
so-
Bands of Mourning, but
Yeah.
also Era 3, it's supposed to be a detective novel where they're trying to hunt down a Mistborn serial killer.
yeah, but it's not gonna
So
be the
that'll be
it's not gonna
but-
be the powered. We're already seeing that he's already said
we don't know that.
Well, we already know that the genetics are getting washed down and they get weaker.
It's
We
true.
know that
Genetics are
original
getting weaker.
Allomancers could literally just soothe and riot and break the hemalurgic creature's control without Duralumin. And that we know that it gets weaker over time. And he said that there's like a baseline somewhere where it doesn't just vanish, but it'll stick around. And that at one point in the far off future, everybody could possibly be full-borns just from genetics spreading like that. But most
But
likely
it gets
that's
less
gonna
and
be just-
less. That's also the thing, is it gets less and less. You have more
Yeah.
people have a chance to have it, but also there's simply less blood for it to have as much of a chance to. So like more people have the blood in them, but the percentile likelihood of it actually happening is less.
I
So you
wonder-
get
in
less
Mistborn,
and
we're
less
gonna see-
people as it goes on. So that's going to be the interesting thing. It's basically as technology advances, you get less magic, but it still exists, and there's still chances of things like Mistborns happening. But
Unless
And-
they find a way to like artificially create Lorasium, which I think would be an
Yeah.
awesome concept.
artificially create a god metal
Yeah,
without
Well-
the shard.
I mean, you could there is a theory that you could split at metal
Harmonium,
into harmonium into Lorasium and
Hmm.
ATM. So that would be interesting to see
Well, I'm
if that is
I'm
possible.
I'm commenting like, what if the science gets so progressed that they can like they can splice the atoms together to create that metal or something. But I'm saying any Mistborn we get pretty much at this point now is going to be even weaker than Bin was compared to the Lord Ruler.
It's
Yeah.
true. It's true. I mean, you always will have Kelsier, right? Because Kelsier, as we know, has a body, and
Mhm.
he has all 16, right? So he's a full-born through spikes.
Does he have a body? I don't think we know that.
He does.
He
Yeah.
has a body. We don't.
How
know
did
if
he
has
save-
Allomancy.
Yes, we
He-
do. He's the
he
one that
has a
makes the Bands of
body.
Mourning.
Yeah, he has a body. But he can't leave
He can't-
Scadrial.
Yeah, he can't
Yeah.
leave. He can't leave Scadrial, but he's got a body. He has
Interesting.
spikes to give him the powers of all of Ferrokami, and then he's also Mistborn naturally. How else would he be
Right.
able to make the Bands of Mourning and be able to create the compounding for all of the southern tribes? Right, like he's the one that he got. It like shows you. He like walks up and he like raises his hand. He's got stars. How else does he then talk to them? How does he like forge the metal, hand them the coins? He makes the coins, shows them how to use
Two
it,
Sions,
unless he has a bottle. So,
one trench coat.
That's what
Like
he is
in-
outside of Scadrial, for sure.
Okay. Also, it's getting late, so
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
should.
Probably wrap up.
Yeah.
It's getting early. Yep.
So not to discuss right now, but I want to leave you with a parting thought to ponder between now and next time. How would a soother or rioter affect a lifeless? Would it be similar to how they affect Khandra or a Kolos? Or would it
No,
be something
they're
totally
not.
different? Or something not at all? Think about that. Until next time.
Okay.
Oh,
We hope
Alright.
you've had a great time listening in. This has been Cosmere Connections. My name is Reader, and we were joined by Swiggity Swoo,
Hey,
DragonKieran.
See you guys later.
I'm Just Juan,
bye, guys.
John,
Nighty night.
and Kay.
See you next time.
We hope you had a great listen, and always remember, there's always another connection. Bye-bye.
adios.
Au revoir.
I'm like, what's going on? I don't know, because I'm not on TikTok, so.
Oh, it's just that the queen died today.
Yeah, the High Lady of England is dead.
Oh,
didn't
she
know?
did? Shit, no, I didn't know.
Please tell me you're recording. We got a live reaction.
I was. I literally just started it too.
Okay, Kay, do your comment.
Peace.
And we're back. You can just fix that all in post. And we're back.
How many times do you think we can get him to say, and we're back?
Are we back yet? Is the song
we're
done?
What's happening?
We're back.
Is the song still
We're back.
playing?
I don't know.